Today we're going to talk about emergency preparedness and disaster planning in the event of an emergency. Houston residents are no strangers to emergencies. Our location along the Gulf of Mexico, in combination with our status as of the nation's industrial centers, leaves us vulnerable to many natural and human hazards. When emergencies occur, our daily lives can be disrupted, having serious effects on our families, friends, and neighbors. This is why preparedness is important. Having the knowledge, skills, and abilities to respond to a disaster is everyone's job. As a Houstonian, we can do the following four-step preparedness process to ensure that we are doing the best we can to make sure our preparedness process is sufficient and we can return back to normalcy as soon as possible. The first thing that we want to do is make an emergency plan. The second thing we're going to do is make an emergency kit. The third thing is being informed about disasters in our area. And finally, helping members of our community prepare themselves. When we talk about the four processes of emergency preparedness, the first thing we're going to talk about is making an emergency plan. Making an emergency plan involves getting with your family and practicing an emergency plan that you all create. Because every family is unique, as you make your plan, be sure to consider everyone's need. Sit down together and decide how you will contact each other, where you will go, and what will you do in an emergency. I have prepared a preparedness checklist for each family to fill out to decide what it is that they're going to do in the event of an emergency. And this plan, checklist, is consistent with talking to everyone, making sure that you have important phone numbers. If you have small kids, you want to make sure that your kids know the parent's full name in the event that you all are separated. We also want to keep a list of contacts in your phone or in your emergency kit to make sure that you have a charger available for your mobile phones, because we all live in a day and age now where everyone has a mobile device. We want to determine the best escape routes in the home in the event that you have to evacuate, and you want to make sure that you have at least two ways of leaving out of each room. We want to decide a meeting place outside of the home for the families, as well as a meeting place outside of the neighborhood in the event that you have to evacuate. This is a plan that you have to discuss with your family. You all need to sit down and really talk about what it is you're going to do in the event of an emergency. You also want to keep a copy of your family emergency plan in your supply kit or another safe waterproof place. So you want to make sure that all of your paperwork and everything is waterproof in the event that there's a hurricane or a flood that may happen in your area. Also, you want to make sure that the people that are in your family that have special needs, that we have access to all the information that your family member with special needs may need to have. We also want to make sure we prepare our homes for emergencies, being able to teach our children how to dial 911 in the event of an emergency. You need to keep a list of your possessions, important papers like your rent lease or your mortgage, the deed to your house, insurance, things like that. Also, you want to make sure that you store at least, in the event of an emergency, if you have to evacuate, you want to make sure you have at least 3 days supply of food and water for each family member, and also at least 7 to 14 days supply of food and water if you have to shelter in place. You want to make sure that you have all of the, in your emergency kit, which is the second thing, we want to make sure that we have all of the things that we need for our family, like food, clothes, water, for the children, your babies. You want to make sure you have enough formula to last for 3 to 5 days if you have to evacuate, as well as 7 to 14 days if you have to shelter in place. You want to make sure that you have enough medications, at least 7 to 2 weeks supply of any medications that any of your family members may need in the event that you have to evacuate or shelter in place. Toiletries, things like that, toothpaste, toothbrush, all your personal hygiene things. You want to just keep all of that in an emergency kit. It can be a bag, it can be a little toolbox, or whatever the case may be, something large enough that you're able to put enough supplies in it for your family to be able to use those in the event that you have to evacuate. The third thing you want to do is we want to stay informed. We want to make sure that we know whether disasters are occurring in our area and know that where we are, and if we're in a flood zone or if we're in a terrorist type zone like the refineries that we have here and around the Houston area. We are a large target for things like that. So we want to make sure that we're aware of our surroundings and where we are. And in the event that there is an emergency, then we need to be able to know what is our next stop, what is the emergency route that we're going to take, where is our next step that we're going to go to make sure that we're out of harm's way. Going back to the kit, I'm sorry I diverted for a second, but we want to make sure that we have like non-perishable food items, battery-powered radios, flashlights with extra batteries. You want to make sure you have a first aid, just a small first aid kit, clothes, towels, bags, some type of, how can I say it? Some type of tool to make sure that you're able to get out of any places that you may have to use a tool. Any extra cash, you need to make sure that you have extra cash, extra car keys, a charger for your cell phone, things like that. Stuffed animals and toys for your children, things that'll keep your kids active, are engaged during the phase so they won't get bored and you have to be, more involved with them instead of dealing with the situation at hand. We also want to make sure that we have enough pet supplies. If we have pets, we need to make sure that we do the same thing, a lot of things for our pets that we may need to do for ourselves as well. Water, food, toys, a strong leash. Make sure your dogs have tags, so that they're able to be identified in the event that they are separated from you in the event of an emergency as well. Again, staying informed. Houston has an emergency radio station where we can get information about disasters and emergencies in the Houston area. We can listen to KUHF 88.7 FM or KTRH 740 AM for any emergency alert system information that may come on those radio stations. Houston also has an emergency website, which is called houstontexas.gov/emergency, and it also can give us a lot of information about any emergencies that are going on in the area and what steps we need to take also. The most important thing about this is really staying informed, being alert on, we get text messages, make sure those text message apps are available so that those emergencies can come over your phone, social media. Also, if in the event that we do have to evacuate, we need to make sure we have numbers to the Red Cross, to FEMA. And I do have a list of those emergency contact numbers here that we can call to get any help from the Office of Emergency Management, the Houston Fire Department, the Police Department, shelters in and around the Houston area, FEMA, the Texas Department of Transportation. All of these numbers here are in the contact information that is supplied in this emergency packet. Also, get to know your neighbors. Here's a list, a checklist here that you can write all your neighbors' names and phone numbers down so you all can stay informed with each other of what's going on in the event that you're separated or one of their family members are separated, so you have those numbers there for them as well. And lastly, This is a map. I have a map that I supplied in the emergency preparedness kit or plant guide that I actually created, and it is a map of the flood zones or the T zones in the Houston area. And basically, this is it shows you, because we're on the Gulf, the region, if you're what zone you're in, if you're prone to floods or disasters or whatever the case may be, you can follow this map here, and it'll tell you if you or your family members are at risk for evacuation. So for the most part, the goal of this video is emergency preparedness. Being informed, being prepared, creating an emergency kit, being informed about when a disaster is taking place, having the correct numbers and all of the emergency numbers, being able to create a plan for you and your family so that you can process through the disaster in a smooth, efficient way. Thank you.